Yes, a very good morning to all my students. Today we will be talking about allowances, which forms part and parcel of the time study mechanism, which is you observe time or basic time plus which constitutes the rating factor, and then allowances mean time allowed for rest and various reasons. So, what are the various allowances? So, when a worker works for a long duration, there is no consistency in her pace. As she requires some attention to personal needs, time is required for fixing needle in case of needle breakage, rethreading the needle in case of thread breakage, time lapse due to machine breakdown. These are some examples day to day we come across needle breakage, thread breakage. The standard time is arriving by adding some allowances to the basic time. This will be a correct measure to set daily targets which are more practical and reliable. That is allowed. Let us take types of allowances. In machine allowance, one is there relaxation allowance, interference allowance, process allowance, contingency allowance, special allowance. So these are the different types of allowances. But normally it is taken in terms of percentage. When deciding allowance, the quantum of allowance must be told in percentage. Of course, it is it will be told and then converted into minutes. So just take machine allowance. This covers the natural what we find day in day out in garment industry is thread breakage, thread cone or tube change. See, one tube is 200 meters, one cone is 5,000 meters. Then thread and needle thread breakage or needle breakage. Sometimes it happens. Then adjusting the tension of the thread when it's being stitched and any small problems in the machine. But generally, the Indian standard is given here. The lower part of your slide is single needle lock stitch machine, which constitutes 90% of all sewing machines in India. Allowance is 12.5%. Double needle lock stitch machine 14%. Single needle chain stitch 13%. Overlock stitch is 12%. Multi-needle chain stitch is 16%. Safety stitch, that is 5 thread overlock or flat lock, we call a safety 18%. And bar tack, normally referred to as reverse stitch 12%. This, if you are using this particular machine, allowance of this time, this percentage has to be added to your basic time. That is what it is. Yes, relaxation allowance for sitting jobs it's 11%, and for standing jobs is 13%. This is an industry standard accepted by Indian standard industry. So that is what is given as allowance. As you all know, like allowances going to the restroom, blow your nose, or something like drinking water, or any personal needs. It can be anything. That is what we call relaxation allowance. And it is given for every operation. It means whatever small single cycle operations, this is given. But as discussed earlier, it is given in percentage. So any sitting job is 11%, 13 is percent for standing. Anyway, generally sewing operations in the industry is a sitting job. Generally, around 5% of that of sewing with modern machineries is a standing job. That is what allowance is given. Now, relaxation allowance is added to the basic allowance, to the basic time, provide the opportunity to recover from psychological, physiological, and psychological effects of carrying out specific work under specific condition. This is for personal needs. The amount is allowed depends on the nature of the job and includes the following two categories. Personal need allowance, necessity to go away from the workplace to attend to personal needs such as washing, going to the lavatory, getting a drink, or etc. It is common for taken as industry standard 5% for the male operator and 7% for the female operator. Then fatigue allowance. Fatigue means it's tiredness because continuously working is provided to recover a worker from a physical efforts of carrying out the work. Constant portion, minimum or basic fatigue allowance, which must be adequate for a worker who carries out the job while sitting. Engaged light work or ideal working condition is considered as 4% for both men and women. A variable portion is added when working conditions are severe. That is when assuming the air conditioning has failed or humidification plant has failed on a particular day. That time the percentage will be more. Based on factors will vary from working conditions depending on the type of work. But in textile and garment industry, in the textile chemical industry where mixing of chemicals takes place, their allowance is more because the fumes come out. With all the production from fumes, they are given more allowance there. Then the factors allowance, the standards given for allowance are standing or the abnormal position, 2% use of force, 10 or 20% use of force means physical effort is given to push a material or carry or something. Then light, then atmospheric condition 10 to 20%, visual strain, not enough lighting is there, or like that is 4 to 8%. Then manual strain, mental strain, loud noise, vibration. These are the areas where allowances, as per union law, also labor union law, also, and as per the International Labour Organization, you have to give these allowances, which are extra time actually given. Then interference allowance, when a worker is attending to more than one machine, then interference is the time for which one or more machine units remain idle while the operator is occupied with work in another machine. This we clearly saw in the man versus machine multiple activity chart. So anyone, either the machine is idle or the worker is idle. So that is called interference allowance, and a percentage is fixed to that. This is provided to compensate this idleness due to interference known as interference allowance. Okay. This is a little rare, but anyone working, operator working more than one machine, it is given. Then there is a process allowance, includes no work because no raw material. So that is there. Some reason, power failure, which is quite common, faulty material. Surprisingly, all the raw material is checked and only sent to the department from the stores. But even then, after that, see, human being are tend to err in their work. So any faulty material comes, due to that production is stopped for a few minutes. It's not the work. It is not the it is not the responsibility of the worker. For they have to give extra time. Faculty tools or equipments. So some reason for handling them. Then bundle handling allowance is that is required expressed as a percentage of total allowance. So these things every day we face in production shop floor. They're called process allowance. Then contingency is normally, even when you're writing accounts, we will say contingency amount. That means whatever we write, head of account, so many things we will write. Over and above that, unexpectedly, some extra expenses will come. This comes in every, you take anything, you take a working of a college, working of industry, you take a marriage taking place, anything, there's something known as contingency because unexpectedly expenses will come. We call it miscellaneous, but also in proper terminology will be contingency, which is 5%, and it's not given in every case. Where the industrial engineer, who was earlier called the work study officer, is satisfied that we can give this allowance. Okay. It is also expressed as a percentage. It's legitimate, irregular, and infrequent items of work delays which cannot economically be measured correctly. So by law, you have to give, but it doesn't come regularly and does not come frequently. But 5% is given as a allowance, contingency. Then any special allowances, any startup of machine, cleaning of machine, shutdown, setting up the machine, or changeover from one style to other, then dismantling allowance, rejection, excess work allowance, learning allowance, training and implementation, small batch allowance, and tool change regarding comes under special allowance. But please remember that no percentage or format is given. Nothing is fixed by industry. It all depends on the industrial engineer or work study manager, who above him is the general manager or the factory manager, allowed to give this. Thank you.